Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Technical Advisory Committee. Members are reminded that these meetings are in person for quorum requirements. Members attending online may not vote, but may comment and participate in the discussion. To participate virtually, please use the raised hand function on your computer. There are 2 public comment points in this meeting. Any speakers in person are welcome to fill out a comment card by the door and give those to Rachel in order to speak. I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, the city has a very vast internship program where we take high school students, college students, we show them what the city does. And this year we started a new internship with the Florida State and their real estate program. And we actually have 4 of our interns sitting in today. They're going around the city for the past few weeks and coming into the next few weeks and just learning what all the departments do and how a city operates and trying to get them up to speed for when they go into the workforce, how them as real estate people can help make projects run a little bit smoother or get through some of the municipal and government processes. So thank you for attending. Now I'm going to turn it over to Slade for agenda review.
All right, thanks, Lenny. Welcome again, everyone, to TAC. Thanks for joining us in person and those of you who are joining online. Just as a heads up, in case you weren't aware, we're having our MTP public meeting on September 29th at the Orange County Multicultural Center in Pine Hills. That meeting's open to the public, so all are welcome to attend. Want to put that on your radar now since TAC doesn't meet in July, having our little summer break. So wanted to mark your calendars now. Some additional housekeeping. Metro Plan's offices will be closed on July 4th for Independence Day. And also got some good news to report out. You may remember that Metro Plan Orlando's Safe Streets for All supplemental planning grant was awarded and then subsequently put on hold due to kind of federal review. And very happy to announce that those funds have been released. They're now unfrozen. So we're working with Federal Highway to get things moving on that. And we will have more to tell you about that at our Vision Zero Task Force meeting on July 15th. Speaking of Vision Zero, wanted to put another date on your calendar. The next edition of our Vision Zero speaker series is on July 10th. It's titled Pathways to Move Safety Projects Forward, and it will be held virtually on July 10th. And as you know, it's officially summer. School's out. Our safety moment today is about some summer resources for teen driving, and we've got Mike Wilson tell you more about that. Mike.
Thank you, Slade, and good morning, everyone. While I'm the usual face up here for Safety Moment, it's actually supposed to be Adriana because we assigned this topic to her because she has a teenager who just started driving. But I'm having to fill in for her this morning. She had another appointment. So Teen Driving Month, as we always do, starting off with a little bit of the data, teen fatal crashes have increased since COVID by about 10%. What seems to be leading the charge there is an increase in speeding and aggressive driving, especially just in the past year. And then also an increase in teens not being restrained when they're getting into a crash. Actually, before I advance to that, there is a FDOT Teen Safe Driving Coalition, that addresses these issues. And one of the things they've identified is that Orange County has the highest number of serious crashes that involve teen drivers in the state. Fortunately, there's been a change at the state level that will beef up the education efforts. A new law going into effect next month will require teens who are 15 to 17 to complete a state approved driver education course before getting their learner's permit. Previously, teens only needed to take a course just on the laws and on substance abuse. This will be a more comprehensive course. It will still be just a classroom type of course. The Florida Virtual School already provides a course of this nature, so that will be the avenue for providing that. As I mentioned, the Teen Safety Coalition is leading the charge on this, and they're also providing a number of other programs, such as their Battle of the Belts program to increase seatbelt usage. And also, they routinely send out this teen driver guide to parents of any teen who's gotten a learner's permit or a new license, new driver's license. So, but in addition to the basic courses, now the Florida Sheriff's Association offers the Teen Driver Challenge. So this is an 8-hour single day course, classroom in the morning, and then getting out onto the driving course in the afternoon. It's offered in 42 counties. It's been around since about 2007. And this is a supplemental course, it gets into some more defensive driving and more emergency handling skills. This course is open to drivers who are aged 15 to 19, who have a valid learner's permit or an operator's license. It's taught by certified law enforcement instructors. It provides potentially some insurance breaks, depending on what your insurance carrier is. Adriana reported that her son, who not surprisingly was a little reluctant to participate, had nothing but good words to say about it afterward, that he really gained a lot from the experience. We have a short video to give you a little more information about the course.
Let's face it, driving in Orlando can be scary, even more so if you're new behind the wheel. That's why the Orange County Sheriff's Office has a class designed for teen drivers to get them more comfortable on the road. The Sheriff's Office, in partnership with the Florida Sheriff's Association, recently launched the Teen Driver Challenge in Orange County.
It's a program that's designed to assist teen drivers with learning a little more about responsible driving, defensive driving, good driving habits and practices that'll help keep them alive on the road.
The course, which is open to drivers between ages 15 and 19, is a mix of classroom learning and hands-on experience. The goal? Reducing the chances of teens being involved in a crash.
Kids love getting their permit, and then they get their car and their freedom. It's fun, but at the same time, we want you to be safe, we want you to be smart, and always keep your eyes on the road.
The 8-hour course starts in the classroom, where the teens first learn the do's and don'ts of staying safe on the road. Then it's outside, where instructors walk the teens around the vehicles, letting them check the tire pressure and inspect what's under the hood.
That 4,000-pound vehicle that they're driving can become a very dangerous object if they don't care for it the way they should.
Now that the cars are checked, the teens are brought out here to the driving pad, and they're paired with a certified driving instructor. Teens get to test their driving skills: cornering, backing up, emergency braking, and skid recovery.
You get to make the mistakes that you usually wouldn't be able to, and then figure out how you would get out of those situations. So that's pretty cool.
The teens aren't graded on their skills, so there's no failing this course, but they are provided feedback and given tips on how to be better drivers.
It gives us an opportunity to show them some good habits and keep the community safe and keep our teens safe, which in turn keeps the road safer and all the community members as well.
To get more information on the Teen Driver Challenge, including how to sign up for the course, go to ocso.com/teendriver. Oh, and in case you were wondering, there is no parallel parking test. For the Orange County Sheriff's Office, I'm John Busdecker.
And that concludes our safety moment for this morning. Be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none. We should have this for adults too. I'd like to sign up. Thanks, Mike. Next on the agenda is agency reports. This is an opportunity for our partner agencies to speak to TAC. If any partners want to speak here, please let Rachel or Slade know before the meeting. And our agency report today with the Florida Department of Transportation, Jonathan Scarf.
Morning, Mr. Chair, TAC members. Thank you, John Scarf, the MPO Liaison Administrator in District 5. A couple items for you this morning. Last night in Osceola County, we held the public hearing for the PD&E study for US 1792, and that's evaluating alternatives to widen the existing 2-lane roadway to a 4-lane roadway. If you're looking for more information on that project, the project number is 437-200-2 and CFL roads. And the limits of that project are from Ivy Miss Lane to the end of Avenue A down south in Osceola County, and it proceeds into Intercession City. I don't have the feedback. I wasn't able to attend last night, but I just want to let you know that occurred. As well as that's number 4 currently on the Metro Plan's prioritized project list under the state highway system and state road projects. On second, continuing with the kind of the safety theme over the summer, I wanted to inform you of Operation Southern Slowdown. And so this is an annual week-long speed enforcement and public education campaign that's conducted in partnership with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the southeastern states of Florida, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Tennessee. This initiative builds a long-standing tradition of collaboration and aims to reduce speed-related fatalities and serious injury crashes by targeting speeding and aggressive driving for Florida or driving violations. And our campaign will kick off with press conferences in media markets across the state, and the enforcement mobilization will run from July 14th through July 19th. So there'll be enhanced enforcement out there. Pass the word if you feel so, or if you want to do so. And pending questions, that concludes my update.
Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, John. We will now move on to roll call.
Thank you. If members can please remember to use their microphones. Bowden,
Present.
Brock,
Here.
Elisar for Castellero,
Present.
Castro,
Here.
Jaeger for Cologne,
Present.
Cornelison,
Here.
Cologne, apology,
Present.
Crandell,
Here.
Delachey,
Here.
Ide,
Present.
Elliott Moore,
Here.
Falk,
Present.
Gomez,
Present.
Hamza, Hardwick,
Here.
Wetzel for Hassan,
Here.
Krug,
Here.
Mendenhall,
Here.
Perez for Nelson,
Here.
Witten for O'Keefe,
Here.
Price, Hullum, Ramdat,
Here.
Moffat for Ramos,
Here.
Recchi,
Here.
Roll,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Sanders,
Here.
Senerans, Smith,
Present.
Story,
Here.
Stoltz, Torres,
Here.
Wharton,
Here.
Martello for Williams,
Here.
Yeargain.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, we have no comment presentations today, but there are several TAC-only presentations that will be presented later in the agenda. We move on to public comments on the action items. We will now hear public comments on the action items. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any member of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you'll be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad, and we will send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
We have no hands raised online.
Do we have any members of the public attending in person that wish to make a public comment?
Apologies, no comments received.
Slade, are there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
We've not received any.
Okay. With that, we will move on to our action items. We have 3 action items today. The first is the May 30th, 2025 meeting minutes. Full meeting minutes are included in section 1 of your agenda packet. And I will entertain a motion.
Chad Smith, move to approve the minutes.
Second.
With a motion and a second, call for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, this will be a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. All those opposed? None. The motion passed. Moving on to the second action item is the approval of the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 2026 to 2030. Jason Sartorio will tell us more on that.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. This morning I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2026 to fiscal year 2030 Transportation Improvement Program TIP draft for adoption. And as was mentioned, you have some additional information located in section 2 of your agenda packets. As we all know, the purpose of the TIP is to identify all federal and state funded transportation projects over the next 5 years in our region. And the TIP is updated annually with the 5th year of funding being consistent with the adopted prioritized project list, which was adopted in July of 2024. And we also have 2 sections of the TIP that are for informational purposes only. The TIP is broken down into several sections that are on the right side of the screen. Of importance, on the left side of the screen is where the projects are itemized. There's 11 different sections that host the projects, and they're itemized based off of kind of the project type. And within the TIP, we have a total of 552 projects this year, with approximately 11.7 billion in funding. So as you can see, over the next 5 years, we have a lot going on in the region. We have a total of 271 federal, state, or turnpike funded projects with approximately 5.5 billion in funding. This does not include the 1.3 billion in local funds that our partner agencies contribute to projects, and this also does not include the partner funded projects that are submitted for informational purposes only. And the pie chart on the screen breaks the funding down by those 11 categories that I previously mentioned on the last slide. And it should be noted that obviously the I-4 funding takes up almost 50% of the pie chart. This does include the $2 billion in discretionary funds that we received as part of the governor's Moving Florida Forward initiative, which is why that section is slightly bigger than it would be in previous years. Within the TIP, we have a total of 39 projects that are funded using Metroplan Orlando Transportation Management Agency, or TMA funding. That comes to approximately 145 million in funding over the next 5 years. This does not include the 31 million in TMA funds that we added to 3 state highway system projects in order to help the state balance the work program. And that was an amendment that we approved earlier on in this year. And the pie chart on the left side of the screen breaks the funding down by project category. So we have complete streets, bicycle and pedestrian, transportation systems management and operations, and transit capital. So since the last time I came in front of you, we do have some changes. We received the CFX 5-year work plan, which added approximately 168 projects to the TIP. And that was approximately 4.5 billion in additional funding. We also updated a couple projects, project names, as well as management agencies. We also added 4 additional partner funded projects. And then as of yesterday, which is not on the screen, FDOT let us know that the Osceola County truck parking site received a grant. So those funds are going to be programmed in the TIP draft for adoption. And additionally, we also did receive some feedback concerning the removal of federal carbon reduction funds from the TIP. We have been in discussion with FDOT regarding if and when those funds will be added back into the TIP. So the public comment period is still open until July 7th, but we do have a summary of some comments that were received to date. We received feedback regarding Sunrail expansion, funding for the Shingle Creek Trail, signage for slower drivers to move over, and also regarding the convenience of Lynx transportation services for senior citizens. Additionally, we received several comments regarding prioritizing and advancing projects along Mitchell Hammock Road in Oviedo, and we also received a suggestion to conduct a survey on the feasibility of light rail in the Mitchell Hammock Road center median. To date, we have hosted 2 virtual Ask a Planner sessions, as well as the TIP open house at the Seminole County Public Library in Oviedo. That was last week. We received some great public feedback, including support for the State Road 50 widening projects in eastern part of Orange County. Received feedback that there's a real desire to reduce traffic congestion through increased public transportation, both through the expansion of Sunrail locally as well as Brightline to Tampa. We also received feedback that there's a desire for safety for all users, especially bicycle and pedestrians and new drivers. And we also received feedback that there should be wider sidewalks on Mitchell Hammock Road in Oviedo. And just one note, we do have one last TIP virtual Ask a Planner session Monday, June 30th, and it's going to be from 12 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the link to that is on the MetroPlan Orlando calendar as well as the TIP webpage. So as I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information in section 2 of your agenda packets. That being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your recommendation of approval of the TIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Do I hear a motion for the approval or the recommendation?
Motion to approve, LSR.
And a second?
A second, Smith.
Any discussion? This is a voice vote. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I just have a quick question. On the I-4, it's 49%. Where's most of that money coming from? Is that federal, state?
Mostly, like I said, 2 billion of that is the governor's Moving Florida Forward initiative. So it's the MFF funds.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
On the carbon reduction funds, is there going to be the feedback? Will it be this summer, or when will we kind of know when?
We're still kind of actively working with FDOT to see when exactly that'll be. It does look like the funds will be reprogrammed back in. However, there's going to be a slight adjustment as far as the type of projects that they might be applied to. So that's kind of a fluid process that we're working through right now. But as soon as we know anything more, we'll obviously let everyone know.
Any other questions? Seeing none, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jason. And our final action item today is the approval of the updated 2025 prioritized project list. Slade Downs can tell us more on that topic.
Thank you. Good morning again to everyone. Like Lenny just said, be walking you through the annual update of the prioritized project list. So I know I covered background in our last meeting, but wanted to give an even quicker run through of background for anyone that might have missed that. The prioritized project list is one of our core products or core plans here at MetroPlan Orlando, where it fits in. You have the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It's our 25-year plan with our scenario visioning of our full entire list of potential projects. You have the TIP, Transportation Improvement Program, which Jason just touched on. It's the upcoming 5 years of projects and project phases that have money allocated to them. And then the PPL is kind of the bridge between those two. It's the 10 years following the TIP of projects that are coming up for the potential of funding. It's kind of like the on-deck circle so that we have, we can coordinate with all of you and make sure that resources are in place, ducks are in a row, so that when the money becomes available, can hit the ground running with those projects. So at our last meeting, I brought you the preview version of this year's update to the PPL, asked for your feedback. Thank you to everyone who provided feedback and comment on that. The majority of changes that we received from all of you were minor adjustments to cost estimates, as well as project limits to a couple of projects within your municipalities. The long and short of it is there were no changes to project rankings. Since that prioritization process is laid out in the MTP, we're sticking to that policy. I presented the final version for adoption to our other advisory committees, and we got some feedback, about some transit projects, definitely looking for, more action in the transit category, as well as some questions about some bike ped projects, but mainly informational. So some good participation at our previous committees this week. And one change that I did want to bring to your attention is a project segmentation request we received from the City of Winter Park. This is, I believe, MTPID 2006. It's US 1792, basically within the city limits of Winter Park. The request was to phase that project into 3 phases, where kind of the most pressing need is at the intersection of 426 Fairbanks Avenue. And then the second and third phases would be the north and south sections of the project as it currently stands. Ordinarily, when a project is within a single municipality, we don't bring it to the entire TAC, but since it bumps up against a couple of our other jurisdictions, wanted to give you all the opportunity to comment and have that discussion. So if anyone has any questions or comments on this project, I'd be happy to take those now. I know we had some good discussion about it in TISMO earlier this morning. So. Okay. Well, in that case, there we go. In that case, I'm going to be asking the chair to ask for a recommendation of approval for the PPL as presented, specifically as presented, so that we can include that segmentation request for that project. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Slade. Do I hear a motion?
Move approval. Charles.
And a second?
Shad Smith, aye. Second.
Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none. Again, this is a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Slade. We are going to move on to our TAC-only presentations. We have 2 today. The first is Taylor Laurent with Metroplan Orlando with a 2050 MTP status update. Morning, Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. Give me a moment just to get set up here. Okay. So today's 2050 MTP status update, for those who were in our TISMO meeting not too long ago, this is going to look very familiar. Those who are here for the TAC meeting, welcome to what we're going to talk about today, which is the second draft funding scenarios. So we've been talking throughout this year about the funding policy for the 2050 MTP. We've got your feedback and had a lot of discussions about those illustrative funding scenarios that were presented at the April Tech MTP Summit. And we've had several follow-up discussions since then. We've taken all of that feedback, from you all as well as the board and our other advisory committees to create these second draft funding scenarios. You will see as you've looked at these in your handouts that these are very similar to each other, and that is on purpose. There are a lot of items that we've built consensus around through the past several months of discussion. So these last few scenarios reflect that consensus and are unique in the way that they are kind of allowing us to explore the unique differences between these items as we look to button up a few final details with the funding policy. So again, I've mentioned those handouts. These are in your agenda packets, and if you want to reference them at any point during today's meeting, they are in section 4 of your agenda packets, and you can pull those up on your tables. There are individual one-page summaries for each of the 4 scenarios, and there are also comparative summaries, which you may want to have handy, that look at the differences between all 4 scenarios based on funding allocation, so percentage of money per modal category within each of these 4 options, and then also under an estimation of scenario outputs. So what could we estimate to be able to see implemented on an annual basis if any one of these 4 scenarios were to move forward? So with that, the funding policy that we've discussed, we remember our bucket discussion last meeting. There are a variety of projects that are funded through multiple funding sources. Of the 4 that are represented in the 2050 MTP, this funding policy only applies to the 3rd bucket for federal funds for MPO priorities. This represents about $34 million per year. And again, the policy that we discussed today only applies to that particular bucket of funding. But with that, I have 4 questions plus 1 possible bonus question for you today that we're going to be going through to help us kind of do a knockdown exercise of these few minor details remaining that we're trying to button up with the 2050 MTP funding policy. Do we want one option versus another? And as we go through and answer these questions today, we're going to kind of see where that leads us in terms of the funding policy that we seem to be leaning towards as a group. So I'll be asking each of these questions aloud, allowing for discussion, questions, clarification items that we want to kind of talk through, any items that we need to get through first, and then ask for a poll, yes or no. And if you want to indicate yes as your answer for a particular question, then I'm going to ask that you take your name placards and turn them vertically so I can quickly count them all throughout the room, and we'll be able to move forward with each question that way. Are there any questions or items that we want to make sure we're clear on before we get started? All right, seeing none, let's just dive right in. These will be in a different order than our TISMO presentation earlier, so do keep that in mind. So our first question is really looking at the high injury network countermeasure projects category. So we've talked about this again at several of our previous meetings. It's kind of floated around, been bandied around. Some of our advisory committees are still kind of on the fence about this. That's why the question has returned. Should we continue to maintain a set aside for our high injury network countermeasure projects within the funding policy? So if you're looking at your handout, that would be the blue scenario, the safety set aside, or should that be recategorized and all those projects moved to other portions of the funding policy and not include a high injury network countermeasure category? So between those, that is the blue scenario versus the yellow one on your handout. And some of our TISMO discussion from earlier this morning, and everyone's welcome to characterize that if there's more details you'd like to add, was really focusing on kind of what would happen if the projects were recategorized or if they stay as their own separate modal category. If they stay in their own singular high injury network countermeasure category, then that is a dedicated funding source to be able to move those projects forward more expeditiously than in any other scenario. So those projects themselves are the projects that were identified in the regional, county, and municipality Vision Zero project plans that we've all worked to develop over the past 1.5 years or so. If those projects were to be recategorized to their next most appropriate category within the funding policy, then they would have to wait for implementation. So we finish the projects we've started. That maybe there was a complete streets project we're halfway through. That needs to be finished first before we can start new projects under that complete streets category. So that's an example, just to kind of help understand the differences between what a yes would mean and what a no would mean, and characterizing some of that discussion from our TISMO meeting not too long ago. Does anyone have any questions or items that we want to discuss before I ask for your poll? All right, then we'll dive right in. For those who would like to continue to see that set aside for high injury network countermeasure projects included in the funding policy, please turn your placards vertically, and I'll do a quick count around the room. I'll start on the left side this time. There we go. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your response there. And put them all back to horizontal for our next question. So this one is more of a nuance type question. Under our active transportation modal category, we do have a school mobility program that we've had for the past 5 years. We've talked about this one throughout our journey with the 2050 MTP as well. And we've built consensus around maintaining this program within the 2050 policy. So that program, just as a quick refresh, allows MetroPlan Orlando to be able to provide additional funds to cover cost overages on FDOT Safe Routes to School projects, to be able to keep those projects moving forward in the event that there are funding issues that arise with any of those items. So that part will continue to be maintained within our active transportation category. We've built consensus around that topic. The last question is for the remaining funds under that active transportation category. So while we have some set aside for that school mobility program, the rest, we have a question on whether those should be restricted to regional transportation or regional trail projects only, or should those funds remain unrestricted, so no restrictions, and allow the remainder of those funds to be used for all active transportation project types. So this is more of a project eligibility question, and again is arising from some of the comments that we've heard from advisory committees, maybe not this one, but some of our others, who are saying that they would have preferred to see more regional trail projects funded through the MPO process than any others. So that's why we're asking this as a very straightforward question for you all today. Should that restriction be in place to apply all those additional funds to regional trail projects only, or should they be left unrestricted for all active transportation project type improvements? Does anyone have any questions or items they'd like to discuss about this item?
Transportation category or just the set aside?
So this would be kind of imagine 2 buckets under active transportation. One for the school mobility program, which we've all agreed on, that one's going to stay. The second half is whatever's left. Should that be regional trails only, or should it be all active transportation improvements?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other clarification?
And,
yes.
So any active transportation will include like complete streets or what kind of projects?
Those types of projects generally fall into bicycle and pedestrian specific improvements. So those would be bike lanes, sidewalks, trails, wide sidewalks, crossing improvements, those types of improvements. Complete streets is a separate element of the funding policy with its own suggested sources or suggested amount of funding for that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other TADENs activated or hands raised, I will ask for a poll. For those who would say yes, they would like to see that restriction to only use those funds for regional trail projects, please place your placards vertically. If you would prefer not to see that restriction, leave them horizontal on the table. Okay, that one's really easy for me. Thank you. I can count that one quickly. All right, third question this morning. This is still in reference to the active transportation category, but this time while we focused on, I'm going to stick with my left hand for the rest of the funds under that category. Now I'm asking a question about that school mobility program. So we built consensus that that will remain, but now we're asking, should that definition and that program be expanded to also include areas of hazardous walking conditions. So that's been some changes in legislative policy recently to include that term. If we were to add that to the school mobility program as one item for implementation, one program to address both, that would give the MPO the ability to be able to initiate projects to address hazardous walking conditions in and around schools, or to expand the scope and help supplement existing FDOT Safe Routes to School projects in ways that we have not been able to do thus far. So a vote for yes would be to have both of those items contained in a single overall program. A vote for no, or an answer of no. This is not an action item, not a vote today. A response of no would be to have those two as separate programs, one for school mobility alone, keeping with the status quo of what we've had with the school mobility program thus far, and having a separate new program to be able to address hazardous walking conditions. Does anyone have any? Yes, go right ahead.
Currently for the school mobility funds, and is there a definition for hazardous walking conditions?
I will follow up with a link to be able to get you to the definition of the hazardous walking conditions. Off the top of my head, it is intended to be able to expand a little bit more beyond the Safe Routes to School definitions for the program that we've been using thus far, but it is intended to, again, still focus on those elements of in and around schools.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or items for clarification? Okay, then I'll ask for the poll. For those who would like to see this as one single program that addresses both school mobility and hazardous walking conditions, please place your placards vertically. For those who would prefer to see it as two separate programs for implementation, leave your placards horizontally on the table. All right, I'm going to start on the right side of the room this time. Okay, thank you so much. And this question we had a little bit more discussion about during our TISMO meeting not too long ago. This question we've talked about at length through many of our meetings, starting back in January before we even brought up the first draft funding policies at the April summit. This is a topic that keeps getting raised through maybe not this particular advisory committee, but through some of our others from our board. They still wanted to see this topic explored. So we're going through the formal process of asking for these thoughts and opinions so I can take them to the board in 2 weeks and be able to share the recommendations from each of our advisory committees and say this was the emphatic answer, yes or no. So we're asking one more time, should MPO funding be used for widening and new corridor construction projects through the addition and creation of a widening and new corridor category as part of our MPO funding policy? Or should those types of projects be primarily addressed through state or other funding opportunities? So this is really a question of should widening and new corridor construction projects be coming out of that blue MPO funding bucket that we had up on the slides before, or coming from some other form of funding bucket? At the TISMO Advisory Committee meeting, there was an emphatic no response to this. I have a couple of frowny faces on my notes for some of the extra emphasis they wanted me to have on that one. But we are formally asking this committee as well. So are there any items that we want to discuss together prior to doing our poll? Okay, I think we're ready then. So if you would like to say yes to include that new category within the funding policy, please place your placards vertically. Otherwise, leave them horizontally on the table. If you'd like the extra emphasis, you can lay them flat and I'll add more frowny faces to my notes. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, so frowny faces times, I think I saw 6. Thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback this morning. This was also a question we discussed during TISMO, so if we want, we can also ask for your poll here today, but but I will characterize it first, and then we can decide. I'll ask our chair to say yes or no, and if we want to officially do this poll. So during the TISMO meeting, we also looked at one other potential restriction to the TISMO modal category. That would be to basically create two sub-buckets under the TISMO modal category. One for ITS and technology improvements specifically, with the remainder of funds being for all other or all remaining TISMO improvements, versus a scenario where they're not overprescribed and left as a general category for the right projects to be able to move forward, kind of following a similar process to what we've done over the past 5 years. During the TISMO meeting, their response was no, not to include that extra set aside or that extra restriction, and to allow for that extra flexibility for the implementation of the funding under this particular category. Does anyone have any questions about that one, or would we like to also add our responses to this, or accept the TISMO recommendation and continue forward?
I think it would be good for us to get polled and
Okay,
provide our response.
all right. Then does anyone have any questions or items that we want to clarify before we ask for the poll? Okay, we're ready to do it. So if you would like to say yes, please put your placards vertically, that you would like to see that specific extra funding box created, or leave them horizontally for no, you would prefer to stick with what the TISMO committee recommended to not overprescribe the use of those funds. Okay, thank you so much. So quickly doing my math here, you were all very decisive. Thank you. Very quick on the majorities here, so I don't have to do too much math on the fly. So based on the responses, this helped us go through and differentiate between each of these 4 scenarios. And based on your responses, you are leaning towards that high injury network. I was able to make that name change between TISMO and now set aside, so that blue category. So that's also been supported through this exact same process by our Community Advisory Committee, Municipal Advisory Committee, just the past 2 days, TISMO a couple hours ago, and our MTP technical workshop responses. So we are seeing a lot of consensus built around this particular element and this form of the funding scenario and its structure. So I'm glad to see that consensus being built, but does anyone have any thoughts or reactions to hearing about that from your responses this morning?
More just looking at the tab versus what we've got up here. I see that, changing from safety to high injury network in terms of the terminology. Can you just kind of go through that just real quick?
Yes, during our TISMO meeting this morning, there were a lot of questions about what exactly qualified as safety and looking at the funding policy separately from prioritization. So those are 2 different elements. So when we look at the prioritization of projects and which items on our transportation to-do list go first, regardless of the type of money that's available, the prioritization does include safety for every single project on our needs list. So we have our transportation to-do list, the order in which we're going to address them. And then right now, what we're deciding with this funding policy, why we're calling it high injury network, to kind of keep that terminology separate, is how far down each of those lists we can get based on the funding that we're allocating to those different categories.
Similar to what I brought up in TISMO, if we just look at the percentage for active transportation, seeing if we can maybe take from a couple of the other categories and just increase it a little bit, I think it would be beneficial.
Thank you. Any other questions or reactions immediately? I will have it again at the end of the presentation. Okay, then thank you for your feedback this morning. So what's going to happen next is I'm going to be taking the feedback from all 4 of our advisory committee meetings that have happened this week and sharing it with the board in 2 weeks as well, to get their blessing to be able to implement the recommended scenario that we are developing together collaboratively. So once we have that final blessing, we'll be moving to actually implement and develop that 2050 MTP cost feasible plan. And that is where you're going to see this funding policy implemented on those projects, see how far down that transportation to-do list we can get based on the funding allocations that we've discussed. You will also see the other funding types. So those 3 other funding buckets that I had up on the presentation slide earlier, how those are included within the 2050 plan as well, to be able to see it more practicably at that point in time. Then overall, we are getting closer to the end of our 2050 MTP development. So with the development of that cost feasible plan, you'll be able to see that in late August. We're going to have our 2050 MTP public meeting to share all of these results with the public as well in a more formal setting towards the end of September. Thank you, Slade, for notifying everyone of that one. And then that's all in preparation for adopting the 2050 MTP this December. So we are seeing the last quarter of that project sliding into home here. So with that, thank you very much for your time today. Are there any other final questions or comments that you'd like to share?
Charlie? So there's a potential that the high injury network could change as the agencies update their Vision Zero action plans every 5 years, whatever is recommended. Is there a potential that a project was designated in the HIN funding and then the network changed and it's no longer on the network? Does that then have to go into a different category, or is there any thought on that?
We can revisit that as that situation arises. If the high injury networks for each agency are updated every 5 years, that'll be perfect timing when we come to update the MTP 5 years from now. That'll be completed about 2 years, just in time for the needs assessment to be started for the 2050 MTP. So that will naturally flow into the process.
And Charlie, if you have a project that's on your high injury network and then it's not your high injury network anymore, you might not even need that project. So probably something we'll all be facing 5 years from now and trying to figure out how to change these around. Any other questions? Laura?
I just want to say that great job. The fact that we're here and have a pretty good consensus across the committees is really impressive. And I think it's a testament to not just the legwork y'all have put into the MTP process and really listening and working out where we have sort of had different ideas, but also the modal plans that led to this. It's really exciting to see it come together.
Thank you very much.
Don't see any other comments. Thank you, Taylor.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, moving on to our next TAC only presentation. So last month, the city of Orlando hosted the Florida Department of Transportation Advanced Air Mobility Workshops. Slade's going to help kick us off with a brief overview of the workshops, and then I will help facilitate a discussion to see what the group's thoughts are on the developments in advanced air mobility. Slade?
All right, thanks, Lenny. So as you probably remember from my announcements over the past few meetings, we were promoting quite a bit the FDOT Advanced Air Mobility Workshops for local governments. And we just wanted to provide an opportunity to have some discussion on that today with this group. So since our last TAC meeting, FDOT's hosted workshops in our region over 3 days for multiple stakeholder groups, covering a broad range of topics relevant to all of our local governments. Based on the registration list, it looks like many of our local jurisdictions and several of the people in this room were able to participate. And we recognize got my script pages turned around. But we recognize that FDOT has worked on this. This is an emerging technology. And I believe we have a video. Oh, ready for the video, Rachel? That's what's going on there.
It's like I'm moved on.
So FDOT has a video put together that we'd like to show you, give you a quick 2-minute overview on this technology.
Advanced Air Mobility, commonly referred to as AAM, brings the latest technology to flight. These aircraft are powered by batteries and electric motors. and most use a combination of rotors and wings, all of which makes them quieter and less costly than fuel-based aircraft. Utilizing vertical takeoff and landing to fly cargo or passengers quickly and efficiently over short distances, these aircraft will operate at existing airports and heliports, but also at standalone facilities known as vertiports. As AAM technology continues to evolve, Florida is leading the nation in creating pathways for this developing mode of transportation.
It's an opportunity to introduce a new mode of transportation to the world to move people and goods.
It's really going to revolutionize transportation as we know it. It's going to really change aviation.
I think AAM is going to transform the way we move around cities, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
We are looking at the cargo medical logistics side of things, as well as working with the military and figuring out how they can incorporate electric aviation into it.
One of the ways we can lead the nation is by bringing thought leaders and industry leaders together to talk about what the future is going to look like.
FDOT has done a tremendous job about pulling together all of these great public and private sector stakeholders.
They are way ahead of where I see anybody else. I mean, the way they're thinking about this, the fact that they're putting together a guidebook and have policies and procedures to implement is fantastic.
We want it to be safe, we want it to be efficient, but at the same time, we want to get to the end results faster than any other transportation provider in the entire world. I'm excited about where we're headed.
For more information, visit our website.
Thanks, Rachel. So proactively and aligning with much of the AAM workshop's contents, FDOT has provided and prepared planning guidance for, there we go, provided local guidance for local agencies, and recently issued a statewide plan of action. All of this can be found on this page at FDOT's website. So, you know, next time you're at a public meeting, you get a comment that's like, it's 2025, where are my flying cars? You can send them a link now. So trying to get a little more informed on this emerging technology. So with that said, we want to turn it back over to the group and offer some time for group discussion. Chair will moderate the open dialogue, but wanted to, you know, just poll any of you that may have been in attendance at the workshop or watched the recordings. You know, what were some takeaways you got from the workshop, but also for all the TAC members, you know, what are some concerns that you may have about how this technology might fit in your jurisdiction? You know, what are some opportunities you're excited about? Just really wanting to get the discussion rolling. So turn it over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Slade. For those that attended any of the workshops, is there any thoughts or concerns that you have? I know we haven't been too lively today, so I may just call on people. But I allow volunteers first. No one? I know one of the concerns, like, I'll start it off. One of the concerns I have, I think that this is a great technology moving forward, but I want to make sure that we're doing it safely, because if we push too fast and they're not saying they're going to fall out of the sky, but if they fall or drop something and then people don't want to adopt it, that could be a concern, especially where they're trying to put some of these hubs. I know through conversations I've had with some of these vendors, they're trying to do almost quick build where they can just set up a heliport on a parking lot, but I still wanted to have some type of security for people getting on there, not just having a folding chair and go to this parking space and you get on the new driverless drone. But I think it is the way that we're going to be able to move a lot of our transportation forward. And even if it's not people, if it's freight or packages, it could help clear up a lot of the congestion we have. Because think about if you can get half the Amazon trucks and freight off the roadways and in the sky delivering some packages, I think it could be very beneficial and help solve some of the issues we've been facing. Anyone?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. And I do not know as much about this topic as Jacques does. He handles most of that for the city. But just from a safety perspective, some of the challenges and concerns that I have are sort of the scope creep and sort of the ownership of the safety of it. As right now, safety for air is handled through FAA and not really through cities on a very local level. So taking on some of that responsibility, or do we leave it to the people who know how to keep things safe in the air? But then getting into the ground level of all of it, battery storage, safety, charging, fire, and then overall, in terms of moving people, I don't think I'm skeptical that it will be very accessible to a lot of our residents. It seems like a very privileged form of transportation and costly. You don't get much safer and efficient than a bus. So I'm waiting to be convinced on the topic.
Thanks, Laura. Ken?
I have two things. Like Laura, I am not an expert on this by any means. My first concern is view sheds. There doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation around the impacts that these will have on vistas. And in Florida, we definitely are known for our views and our sunsets. And the second, more positive, is while locally, and I was a little sad to see more focus on Tampa in the video than Orlando, but while locally, a lot of it's been focused on the airports, I do think there's opportunity to partner with some of the current helipads or other facilities in the tourism corridors and be able to maybe leapfrog some of those all the infrastructural projects there.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to add some other thoughts. Despite the fact that we think that these things take off straight up and land straight down, it's much more efficient for them to have an angle, which also has an influence on the land use approvals that we may have around those. They may not be able to build as tall as they think they can if we make an approval at certain locations. There's still a lot of stuff to work through and get through. I know my colleagues in Orange County administration are heavily involved in this, as well as I. And it kind of tells you a little bit how complicated the terrestrial movement of autonomous vehicles are if there's a lot of energy in taking vehicle transportation above the ground. So there's lots of conflicts that are encountered on the ground, far less in the air. But again, like you had mentioned, the control of all of that is still very, very dynamic. So interested in following.
Thanks, Brian. Melissa?
Yeah, one of the things I brought up in the meeting was the timeline and the review that is brought up. A lot of our jurisdictions have a timeline on how long your site plans or how long your petition kind of process is valid for, but then after they get your local jurisdiction approval, then they go through another process. So if the timing doesn't work out, there may be kind of a back and forth, which was a little bit of the concern that I had when I saw the process that I had to go through. So they may not all work out. So that's kind of one of the things I brought up as a foreseeable. They don't have a process yet, or they have a process, but no one's gone through it yet. So until that kind of reiteration process goes, it may be something we have to work out for that.
One thing I'm going to try to set you up. It's perfect that you were about to ask a question. I know with vehicles today, we're struggling with having them connected with one another and connected to the infrastructure. Jacques, maybe you know, maybe you don't. How are these drones communicating to the towers or to other planes? Because if we have an issue right now of having cars being able to talk, has anyone started thinking about how the drones and planes are going to talk or how that communication is going to work? Because that could be very devastating.
Yeah, so right now and so drones are, you'll hear UAS, unmanned aerial systems, versus the eVTOL, AAM, passenger aircraft. So all the passenger aircraft will still have a pilot. Right now, only be able to fly under visual flight rules, so kind of like a traditional airplane. Different training and all of that. So there are differences, but generally the same concept of pilots and how they'd interact. For drones, any drones that are of a commercial operation. So I gave a presentation earlier this year for Wing, which is an Google Alphabet subsidiary. They've been in the news, I think, last week saying we can't wait to start in Central Florida. They still don't have FAA approval, but any of those commercial operations, and I can't remember the exact nomenclature, but there's a specific standard that they are all required to do to basically say, here I am. This is who I am, here I am. So for those, if everybody's acting correctly, you should be able to see where they are. That's part of it, but then there's also the deconfliction, make sure each company is really working how they don't fly into themselves, but how do they make sure they don't fly into, his drones or your drones or so on. And then also, there's a lot of discussion around how do we as a municipality, if even though we're not in charge of the airspace, how do we let people know, hey, we have this parade or there's a fire, there's an emergency, please keep your drones away from this area without making it onerous on our first responders. One of the police officers I talked to really wants to make sure that if somebody's holed up in a house, a drone can't, deliver them food or weapons or whatever during that kind of incident. So there's a lot of discussion there. A couple things, a couple updates since even the tabletop. And I think you, Slade, you had it, one of the documents in your presentation, but so Governor DeSantis signed on the 17th, signed a couple bills. Senate Bill 1662 included a lot of framework for advanced air mobility, as well as space systems and a lot of things for both of those types of transportation. And as part of that, FDOT has designated SunTrax to have the first vertiport done by the state to support research, testing, deployment. Also, earlier this month on the 6th, the president signed an executive order unleashing American drone dominance. So a lot of that talks about unmanned aircraft systems, so drones and expanding the use of drones. But there's a big section in there about establishment of an electric vertical takeoff and landing pilot program. So that's going to designate, the FAA has, I think, 90 days to issue requests for proposals to state, local, tribal, territorial governments to do demonstration for eVTOLs and drones. And then the FAA has 180 days to choose up to 5 projects, or at least 5 pilot projects. So there's a lot of movement, whether or not we're ready for it. There's a lot of movement there, and there's been a lot of discussion. So the hope is that as these testing and pilot projects come about, we start answering more of these questions. And even if you're not expecting a vertiport or a drone nest or hub in your community, I would really encourage you to keep apprised of and be part of the conversation, if nothing else, so you understand what role or responsibilities or even opportunities you have in your jurisdiction over your airspace. Because if the only thing that you're getting out of all the drone deliveries is flying over your airspace and you don't know how you may or may not be able to regulate it, it's a very hard conversation. So I would just say to keep apprised. I think we'll see a lot more in the next 6 months. At the Paris Air Show, there was a lot of talk about Florida. FDOT continues to have an advisory group, and we're meeting in Fort Myers in a week and a half with that. So you'll keep seeing stuff. Did I answer your question? What was your question?
I think you did. I forgot my question. Thanks, Jack. Brian, you got
Oh, I'm sorry. Still am.
any other questions, thoughts, concerns, topics?
I have one. Has any of, how many cities, municipalities, whatever, have they inquired from, have had inquiries for this? Does anybody know? I mean,
Jacques?
I will say the companies are very, not hush hush, but they don't want to give away too much. There is, actual signed deals and documents in place down in Southwest or Southeast Florida. A lot of the quick movement you see kind of gearing towards is for some of the fixed base operators, the FBOs that are already at airports. That's a much quicker process to go through than a brand new vertiport or even changing a heliport. But there's a lot of wait and see, a lot of discussions, but no, they're not very open on who they're talking to.
so with that being said, then since OIA or Herndon or, either one of them are in the city, so I'm guessing they would have to come through you guys, so you would probably know a little bit sooner than the rest?
Maybe. So if you're not aware, and Chris Delachey with the GOA can speak to this a little bit more if needed, but so GOA is currently has an RFP out there to look at partnerships to have 1 or 2 vertiports at MCO and go through that process with private industry to come up with a group to really kind of promote and move that discussion forward. The process, it's a weird process as you mentioned, the process that hasn't really gone through with FDOT and the city or any cities and the full process. So we'll see. We'll probably find out together.
I will say, to add on to that, Chris Delachey with the Aviation Authority, we do have a procurement out right now, an invitation to negotiate. And we just shortlisted 2 firms or 2 companies to operate and develop a vertiport at MCO. So we'll finish that solicitation closer towards the end of the year, November, December timeframe.
Okay, I was just curious because, Belle Isle, we're right there next to that. So I was just, for us, kind of curious if we knew of anything coming that way and stuff. Because we will get the calls when they start seeing it.
And to that, I'll say for the city, at least for vertiport with the bigger passenger aircrafts, we see that as a conditional use permit process, public meetings, the whole normal kind of process there. For drone deliveries, based off of state statute, we are most likely it would be just a letter of determination where they come in, they get a site plan determination for, in this case, the Walmart parking lot, let's say, and then they can deliver anywhere that they deem safe within that 6-mile radius, whether it's in the city, in the county, in a different jurisdiction. That one would be just an administrative process. We don't have much leeway there to require any more onerous or additional steps. That's just the drone delivery side of it. But for the larger aircraft with passengers, we see that as a full, public hearing, municipal planning board, going to city council.
Thanks, Jacques. Adam.
Yeah, just hearing all this discussion, just because of the way things are going, there's in the state element, state realm, they seem to be doing a lot more preemptive local jurisdiction to be able to do anything. I mean, we got food trucks were taken away from us, so many other things just continue to be taken away. So I'm wondering, at what point in this process, I mean, is the municipality even going to have any ability to control this element, or is it always just going to be a state, like just going to completely preempt local jurisdictions on any kind of control where these are being located, how they're being managed?
So is that more for like vertiports for the larger aircraft or drones or all of it?
All of it.
So right now, I will say for the drones, under current state statute, we have very limited as a local jurisdiction. They are fairly, at least the interpretation that we have as the city of Orlando is they're pretty much allowed by right in any commercial zoning district. I don't remember if it's commercial or non-residential zoning district. And then it does have a few minor things that we can look at specific to vertiport, to drones. Regarding vertiports, I will say the discussion has been very different with companies. They want to get cities buy-in and work with cities. There was one interest group last year that proposed legislation that would have very significantly preempted any local jurisdiction from being able to regulate vertiport locations or operations at vertiports. And the rest of the industry basically said, no, we don't want to go that route. We know we have to work with cities to be able to get people to not pick at us the whole time we're there, but also ride in our vehicles and take advantage. So I haven't seen a lot of push to preempt for vertiports, but a lot of what we can and can't do is already covered under FAA rules the minute it leaves the ground. And then also, as was mentioned before, it's also important to know it doesn't go straight up. It's an 8-to-1 approach and takeoff. So for every 8 feet out, it's only going up 1 foot. So when you're thinking about that imaginary takeoff, it's a lot bigger than kind of some of the videos show.
Do you have another one on? Oh, Slade?
I wasn't able to make it to the workshops because I was sick that week, but Florida's aerial highway network. When I think of a highway network, I think of, a line on a map. Is establishing like flight paths like a potential part of this plan, or is that something they're looking into, or like restricted flight paths for this, or
right now, no.
Okay.
As they detailed, I think they brought up at the presentation, they had some examples of, possible connections, and they made it very clear, this is all illustrative. We're not saying this will connect to here and this will connect to here. A lot of it will be dictated of which communities have vertiports where, and where ultimately do people want to go. So I think there's and I'm hoping it continues with different organizations, a push to, Cutter has done some stuff, Embry-Riddle, hopefully with some of the new legislation, UCF gets into it as well, of looking at what makes sense as a network, not looking at what just the city of Orlando needs are, or Altamont, or Seminole County, or Osceola, but as a network, what kind of makes sense? It's very much still up in the air, pun intended. You're welcome.
Yeah, so I will say our air traffic controllers are studying all that now. The airspace is very complex, it's very layered. And so at the end of the summer, they are going to go out to the training facility at the FAA, training lab to look at how to control these aircraft in sort of a simulated environment. So they have not established anything yet, but they are looking at it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts or insights? Seeing none, I'll thank Jacques and Slade for helping facilitate this. Moving on with the agenda, we'll go on to the general information. There are several items in the general information section and section 5 of the agenda packets. Upcoming meeting of interest. The next TAC meeting is held in person on Friday, August 22nd, with the next Metro Plan Orlando Board meeting being held in person on Wednesday, July 9th at 9 a.m. Full lists of all the meetings are in your agenda packet. With that, I would like to move on to member comments and other business. Are there any members in the committee that would like to bring something to the committee? Seeing none, I have 3 really quick items. One, it's a little late now, but anyone that was looking to apply for the Safe Streets for All grant, it closed yesterday at 5 p.m. So those who did submit, I wish you all luck. I know there's at least three agencies here that submitted, so I hope you guys all get it. I wanted to thank Metro Plan and Seminole County as well for some of the support and help they've had with our application. And speaking on that, next month, FTA's no-low and zero emission grant program is also closing at the end of the month. So if you're looking to update your fleet or change from traditional gas to low emissions, zero emissions, or update a facility, that grant is due at the end of the month. So please get ready to apply if you were doing that. And as many of you are aware, next week with July 4th, City of Altamont Springs has a small little event, Red Hot and Boom. So if you're planning on going, please get there early. If you're not planning on going, just try to avoid the 436 I-4 area. We're shutting down a lot of turn lanes and intersections, and just I would recommend avoiding that from about 6 p.m. to midnight on July 3rd if you're not going. With no other comments, it is 11:25 and the meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't do.
Public comments. I'm sorry. It was in my packet. Strike that. We will move on to public comments. We will now hear public comments on all business. We ask that you provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt to unmute your mic. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
We do not, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any members of the public attending in person that would like to make a public comment?
No comments received.
Slade, are there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
None were received.
Okay, thank you. With that,
I think Arturo has one more.
Arturo?
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention, today is Bill Walton's last meeting for Seminole County. He's moving on to City of Buckland. I just wanted to thank him for all his time and effort with this committee.
Well, thank you, Bill, for everything. And I'll get to that meter issue soon. Oh, I know. We'll still be talking. But with that, at 11:25, the meeting is adjourned.